Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the week. So before bed, a 12-year-old girl and her 8-year-old cousin had been arguing over an iPhone, which is something we always see with children in today's day and age. I'm sure you encounter it a lot with my little sisters. Yeah, I mean, they don't have phones per se. They have big phones. They have iPads, but yeah, they don't really fight over it. But when one of them, like it just happened yesterday because I let them bring it to the dentist with them because they were getting their cavities filled. And I was like, okay, you guys could like listen to a book or listen to music or something while you're getting your cavities filled. And Lillian's went dead. So she was trying to look at Lucia's and it was just like this big, well, I don't have anything to look at. Like, it just was so ridiculous. And that's why I never even let them bring it with them anywhere because of that kind of crap. But it just was like a certain circumstance. But to get to your point, I totally understand. This is like a normal thing that kids do. Yeah, so I don't think like the family thought anything of it. I mean, this is just normal bickering between children. So the two of them shared a bunk bed and the 8-year-old had gone to bed on the top bunk of the bed. And then I guess they had some type of like Ring camera or some child surveillance camera in the room. But they saw that the 12-year-old then took bedding and smothered the 8-year-old to death. Yeah, this is... Even investigators are saying, like, this is one of the most disturbing cases that they've ever seen. And what makes it worse is after she smothered her to death, she kind of took her body and propped it up and moved it to hide the evidence, which is so weird in a 12-year-old child's mind to do that. Well, yeah, I mean, the action itself of committing the crime is totally bizarre and out of the normal, especially for a child that's... I would consider 12, I know it's on the brink of being a teenager, but I still think that's a young kid, you know? So like, well, that's what I want to say because the prosecutor is trying to charge this 12-year-old as an adult. And I just completely disagree with that. Like my kid's 11, my middle child's 11 years old. Next year, she certainly is nowhere near being an adult. Like I had to hold her hand yesterday when she was getting Novocaine. Like she's a baby. She's a child. I understand what she did was completely the worst thing that you could ever do to a person, right? But you need to figure out what's wrong with that kid. You can't just charge them as a child because that's going to set them up for problems their entire life. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that decision comes from as far as the lawyers go because to me, if a child this young commits an act this heinous and, you know, kind of has the wherewithal to like move around the body and have evidence tampering, as they're saying, I don't think even if they go to juvie and have some mental treatment that they're going to get out and be a totally normal adult, right? So maybe trying them as an adult is making sure that they're kind of away from society for the rest of their life. But I don't know what... in other cases similar to this of children killing other children, what they've seen as far as the treatment and how they go on to live normal lives if they do, and if maybe the charge as an adult is resulting from that. Yeah, but if you do that, you're just saying like, okay, this 12-year-old doesn't, I mean, you might as well just put her to death if you're going to put her in jail for the rest of her life. Like she doesn't deserve to live in society because of this. And while... that could be right. Like right. You have animals that are born that you put down because they harm people and stuff, right? Maybe the same thing happens with people that they're just born and they're just a complete harm to society and themselves and they shouldn't be here. But I don't think that anyone on this planet should be able to judge a child like that. I don't know. It's just think about it from the child's perspective. Like, I understand you're saying, okay, she tampered with evidence and so that means she knew what she did was wrong and she was trying to hide it. But like, if a kid stole a piece of gum from the store, they would lie about it and try to hide it. Like, that's what kids do when they do stuff that's messed up. They make up lies about it, right?
So I feel like that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with their decision to try to. Well, they've filed a motion to try to charge her as an adult. That's not official yet, but I guess I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm trying to understand where it came from and if they've seen in prior cases that it's done absolutely nothing to have them charged as a child. I don't really know. I'm not a lawyer, so I am curious why they decided that, because I understand in some cases when they try to charge like a 15 or 16-year-old as an adult, because your brain, in my opinion, is like nearly fully developed. So I understand.
No, it's definitely not.
Well,
it's nowhere
you're
near
more of an adult than you are when you're 12. So that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I still think 14's even bordering.
I didn't say
on
14 though. I said 15 or 16. Like you're starting to approach adulthood. So like I understand why they go after them then, because if you want to just keep it a firm line, like a 17-year-old is still a minor, but they have the actions of an adult. So like you have to think about that. I think 12 is ridiculously young to charge this child with that. I just wonder if it comes from prior
I also
cases.
just want to know, like, there's no way that these two kids had innocent bickering and this child was completely normal and just snapped like that. Like, there's way more to this story. I don't buy that even a little bit.
Yeah, there might have been, but what's the family going to do? You don't know what their deal was. You don't know if like the only option was to have them sleep in the same room. Like some people don't have the option to separate kids, or you don't know if anybody was really monitoring them. You just don't know the situation, you know?
There's certain stories that we have on here that I go back and forth about talking about, even because they're just so sad, but we're just reporting the news. It just sucks though, honestly. Like I hate hearing about things that involve children. All right, let's get onto some more juicy topics in celebrity news.
So Bob Newhart died, which is really sad. He was 94 years old. I would say my generation, I know, I'm going to preface this with, I know he was way more famous before these things, but I personally, and I feel like my generation of millennials, mostly knows him as the dad in Elf. He was Papa Elf, and he was Sid in Legally Blonde 2, the doorman.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that. I love Legally Blonde. That's like one of my faves. Yeah, he seems like he's just like one of those kinds of guys that's like a grandpa figure kind of. He's just was really cool. And I mean, he was 94, so there's not much to report. And they just said he had a series of short illnesses. But when you're 94, like, come on, you could get blown over and die, right? So, yeah, it's sad. He lived a nice long life though, and he did have a bunch of really cool roles.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good career in Hollywood. He started working in comedy in the 50s and he really popped off in the 60s. I think he even won a Grammy in the 60s for Best Comedy Album, which is like such a huge accomplishment. Then in 72, he went on to have the Bob Newhart Show, which was this really big sitcom. That went on for 6 years. And then for 8 years, he had another sitcom that was huge called Newhart. Yeah, and like you said, it's kind of, you know, it's sad because all they're saying is that he suffered from a series of short illnesses, so we don't really know. And I don't know if you read this too, but his wife of 60 years had died the year before, so.
Yeah, which always happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, this isn't so sad. I think that when the best deaths to ever report are ones that people lived a really long life and, you know, they got to see their kids grow up and their grandkids and everything and just had a fulfilling career, and that's like how everyone should die, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So this next one, this is like this really crazy freak accident out of Brazil. So this Brazilian musician, Aries Sasaki, he was performing on stage. I guess a fan came up and they were soaking wet. They don't really know why they were wet, if it was like sweat or if they were just, you know, do you ever go to like a concert? I remember being at Warped Tour in the summers in the good old days, and people would like take whole bottles of water and just pour them over themselves because it was just so unbearably hot outside.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that because we've been in that situation before.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it was that. But basically, the contact between him and the wet person triggered this fatal electric shock.
I just can't really understand. I looked at multiple articles, and when we read the news stories, it's like every single news source repeats the same exact thing. So it's hard to get more details. But I did get a little bit more details that said that, like you said, the fan was soaking wet, got up on stage and hugged him, and then the water coming off of the person hit a nearby cable, which then caused this current of electricity to go through and kill him. I don't understand. Like, how did the other person not get hurt?
I don't know how the other person didn't get hurt, but I'm thinking, like, if that guy is holding a microphone or a guitar that's then plugged into an amp and then plugged into an outlet, like, I don't know if that's...
Do you think there's a possibility, because of how news gets reported wrong, that he actually hugged a fan, an electric fan, and got electrocuted? It's like the only thing that I could think that would make sense in this story. It just, like, unless the wire was open. I understand how it could happen, but I don't understand how that person that was hugging wasn't involved in all of that. But regardless, it happened. It happened live on stage, and which is terrifying to think that you go to see a band and the person that's on stage dies in front of you.
Well, I was kind of
It's
surprised
just so
nobody
weird.
had video of the exact moment it went down, just because in today's day and age with recording everything, I don't know, maybe the person was soaking wet so bad that it then just transferred onto him and they had pulled away by the time it just happened in a split second. You just don't know. We don't have video. I mean, the resort it happened at might have video of the entire thing, but he was only 35 years old, recently married. It's just really sad.
It's such a freak accident. I just want to know more. I want to know, like, how the hell that even happened. But well, we won't hear anything else about this. It's like, as with every weird story.
Yeah, exactly. They just want the juicy headline and then never follow up with the updates.
Exactly.
All right, so our next one is about Joe Rogan. So him and his wife had moved to Colorado over 15 years ago, but after 4 months of living there, they had to move back to Southern California.
So in this story, they were saying that she got pregnant and then decided that they had to move because of the high altitude that is present in Colorado. Now, he didn't say if she was having symptoms associated with that altitude or if she just was like any other pregnant woman that just freaked out and was like, there's a higher risk of pregnancy complications in Colorado. We got to get out of here because I don't want to have any problems, which I'm leaning towards is probably what happened.
Yeah, because all the information the article said basically was he said it was brutal. So was it brutal moving across state lines 2 times with only in a couple of months?
Or was it brutal dealing with like a crazy pregnant woman? That's probably what he meant.
Yeah.
But the WHO actually recommends that pregnant women should not even sleep above 9,800 feet of altitude. And in Colorado, they're at 8,000. So there's a known documented higher risk of pregnancy complications in Colorado because of the high altitude, which means that the pregnant woman is getting less oxygen, and is really what could cause the problem. So obviously there's lots of people that live in Colorado that have had successful pregnancies and give birth and everything, but they're just saying versus the national average that these people have higher complications. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I guess, like, if you're like them and you have money, right, you're going to do anything you possibly can to make sure it's safe for you.
It's still annoying. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It probably sucks really bad to move. But one of the reasons that it can be such a problem too, even if you're traveling when you're pregnant, is that when you have altitude sickness, the symptoms can be similar to things that you get in pregnancy, like nausea, headache, and things like that. And if you just ignore that because you're like, oh, I'm pregnant, I feel sick all the time, and then you don't go get treatment, you could have serious complications from that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just never thought about that. I feel like when we went to Denver recently, everybody was gassing me up that I was going to be sick and I was totally fine, and I was just annoyed anybody said anything to me about it at all.
Well, did you fly into Denver?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was just curious because they do say that, like, you know how I drove on that trip?
Mm-hmm.
If you drive, it's like a slow increase that you don't notice, your body doesn't notice it as much as if you just get off a plane and you're there. I was just curious about that, but I do remember before you left, like all these people were saying you're going to get sick and all this shit, and then you're like, great. And you didn't feel anything. You were like completely fine.
Nothing at all. I mean, we stayed in a weird boutique hotel that didn't have elevators, which we were only on the second floor, but the only time I felt like slightly out of breath was just bringing my suitcase up steps, but I feel like I would have been regardless.
That would happen at home.
We didn't go crazy high. I mean, when we were on the train, though, it went 10,000 feet up in the train, but the train was probably pressurized in some capacity, but I don't know. I was really irritated because everybody just kept telling me how sick I was going to be. And so I was almost like scared to even go there, but we had already booked everything. And then when we got there, I was 100% fine.
That's how I feel about cruises, because my mom just recently went on a cruise and now she's like wants our whole family to go, which
No thank
like we'll see. But I'm scared to go on a cruise because so many people are like, oh, you're going to get so sick and you're sick the whole trip and blah, blah. And I'm like, that worries me. But Mom said she didn't get sick at all. But there's more people than not that have said that they've had their whole trip ruined. And that feeling of nausea and like when you get on a ride and you're going to throw up is like the worst feeling in the world. And I don't want to feel like that for multiple hours/days in a row.
Yeah, but I see it for me, like if I hadn't gone because of everybody saying that, like I wouldn't have gone typically if everybody was building me up, but I already booked the trip. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing it, right? So but if I don't know, maybe if I had money and like losing money on a plane and air in the hotel and everything didn't affect me, then maybe I would have been like, you know what, I'm not going to go. And I'm glad I did because I got to see a part of the country that was awesome, and the buildup was just ridiculous. I don't know. It's like mind your business if people are going places.
Also, just like lots of humans live there, so it'll be fine.
Exactly.
It's not like you're going to Mars and you're like, okay, like humans don't go here, so there's like a high probability of getting sick here. It's just like you're still in an area where other people that have your same anatomy and physiology are living. So like take that into consideration.
Would I go there and run a race? No, but I'm not going to do that regardless. So just like mind your business. I don't know. It's just kind of it's an annoying trait people have. I mean, I feel like I do it all the time, so I need to just, practice what I preach, but whatever. All right. Pete Davidson last year and his girlfriend at the time, Chase Suey Wonders, were driving around Beverly Hills when he said he lost control of the wheel, hit a fire hydrant, and then a house. So over this past weekend, he said that he didn't see a stop sign in time, so instead of the possibility of hitting and possibly killing somebody, he swerved and he hit the house instead. As we've seen from paparazzi pictures, there's not much damage to this house, but any damage to a house is very annoying, and nobody got hurt, so he just got charged with reckless driving.
He wasn't under the influence or anything?
They said he was not.
So, I know someone this happened to, actually. One of my friends had just started driving, and she drove through somebody's fence and into the house, the side of the house. And she wasn't high or drunk or anything like that. Like she just started driving. She was driving for like 1 week or something, had her license, but got her license as an adult, not like a teenager. So I don't know, like it's totally possible. Like he could have been texting, right? Or because that's a whole other thing that doesn't even get taken into consideration, is like distracted driving or doing something else with his girlfriend while he's driving or anything, whatever. But regardless, he got in this weird accident, right? So what was his punishment?
Well, so the reckless driving charge, he could have gotten 90 days in jail or a fine, but he was working with a judge to get it dismissed. So
don't you think 90 days in jail sounds really extreme?
Well, yeah, but I guess if
they don't even put drunk drivers in jail, like, what are you talking about right now?
I guess it depends on like what caused the reckless driving, right? So that's probably the maximum you could get for that type of charge, but then it circumstantially depends what's going to happen. Anyway, I guess the judge, I've never heard of this before, so I don't know if this was some unique arrangement, but in order to get the charges dropped or dismissed, he had to visit a morgue to, quote, look at a dead body that died from a reckless driving accident. He also had to partake in an 8-hour class on dead bodies and then write an essay about what he learned, and then he had to take a safe driving course and complete 50 hours of community service.
I kind of love this, honestly.
Do you know when I was in high school and we were taking driver's ed, we had to make a field trip to a local hospital, and they took us into like the ICU and gave us a presentation on what happens when you're like texting and driving, drinking and driving, all this stuff.
I think that's a great idea.
And it was, you know me and how I am in medical settings, so they're like showing us pictures of people's legs falling off, and even though ironically enough I do this for work now, I like almost passed out in front of everybody in my class. It's so ridiculous.
Don't you think it's a good idea though?
Yeah, because
it's real, and especially even taking it a step further and not looking at a presentation, but actually looking at dead people in front of you. Like, and that's one thing. Before I started interning at the medical examiner's office, I just never had any idea how many people die in accidents every day. I just thought like, oh, whatever's on the news is what happens. You hear about a car accident and a person get hit on a motorcycle. It's like, no. Like, there's so many a day. You just don't even hear about them. It's insane. Especially around here in the summer, like motorcycle accidents, there's multiple ones a day that people die. And I think it's good to really show people like, hey, this is a real thing and it happens to people unexpectedly when people are driving like assholes, you know?
It pisses me off too why our posts get deleted on Instagram, because like how many people have messaged you and said, I was interested in buying a motorcycle, but after seeing the video you posted, I decided I'm not going to do that anymore.
We're saving lives.
We are saving lives. It's the same.
Or being total Karens and just buzzkills for dudes that want to get motorcycles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a ton of people read your posts and think you're a total Karen, but like the biggest impact I could think you have is with cigarette smokers, right? You not only show people pictures of lungs that have smoked their whole lives and how disgusting that looks, but you've also explained like people just exclusively think like, oh, if you smoke, you could get lung cancer. That's it. There's like a million things that could go wrong with you.
Well, I'm not trying to be a Karen. I'm like, I don't give a shit if people do it. I'm not telling people not to do anything. I'm just trying to put the information out there so people know about it, because I think that was the biggest shock when I started working in pathology, was just like, I never heard about this. And you don't know what you don't know. So I just present the facts. I'm not trying to be like, now you don't get a motorcycle. I mean, I definitely would do that to my husband because he would never ever get one under my watch. But I don't really, you'd have to sit in your house and live in a complete bubble in order to protect yourself from everything.
And you're not
even
safe from that because planes could drop a giant block of ice on your house. You could just be sitting on your couch. No.
Or space junk. I don't even think we've talked about all these like weird things like that. Space junk. Oh, you know which one I heard on the news the other day? And I didn't add this because nobody got hurt or anything, but a person was driving in New Jersey and a bluefish fell on their Tesla and like destroyed their car. A bluefish driving. And they think that like some kind of
bluefish.
It's a bluefish. It's like a huge fish.
But where did it come from?
They think that like some bird of prey had it and dropped it or something.
Oh my God.
They don't know where, but like I'm just saying like okay, you would ever think that your car would get damaged and you could possibly be in an accident because a giant fish fell from the sky. Those things can be up to like 10 feet tall. They're huge. You remember in Jaws when he's like, you don't remember the famous scene in Jaws when he's screaming to get out of the ocean and then everyone was like, it's bluefish.
Well, I didn't know if it was like the name of a piece of, I thought you were talking about space junk and then that was the name of like.
Well, I was.
Something.
I kind of jumped stories. Sorry. But
Totally
no, this
lost.
is like legit. This is like a legit fish that came out of the ocean, hit somebody's car somehow. So like, yes, to get to your point, like you just can't avoid you can't avoid anything, but there's certain things that increase your risk of getting injured, and motorcycles are definitely one of them, I would say. But cars are too, like, honestly.
Anyway, I will, even though it was probably 15 years ago. No, it had to be less than 15 years ago. Anyway, I will never forget that field trip because, well, now you have all these pictures and I see them regularly, but I don't think the average person is seeing pictures of, legs ripped off from car accidents or dead people. So I think that was certainly impactful, but I don't know. I kind of like that the judge did this. I think that's more impactful than going to jail, honestly.
Yeah, it is 100%.
And yeah, I don't know. So I guess he completed all of this and the charges were dropped and he just has a single misdemeanor now.
Good for him.
Good for him.
All right, let's get on to freak accidents.
So Florida theme parks are required to self-report guest injuries that require at least 24 hours of hospitalization to the state each quarter, which how many incidents are happening that don't require 24-hour hospitalization?
I was thinking that when I read that, but all of these different injuries that were reported, there's only some that I'm like, okay, that required a legit hospital stay.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I definitely feel like we've covered more recently that were more extreme, but I guess they didn't require the 24-hour hospitalization, so the state doesn't have the paperwork, and we've seen it via like TikTok or something, right?
So some of the lists are 76-year-old man fell ill riding Tron. Like, duh, 76 years old and you're riding the most intense roller coaster at Disney World and you fell ill when you got off of, like, okay.
But I was gonna...
Is that like, are we shocked by that?
All right,
like,
so wait. So the quarterly report came out from incidents from April to June in Florida. So there was about a dozen, I believe 11 incidents between Disney World and Universal. And what I was going to say is most of the ones at Disney World were like dizziness, right? And because most of the rides are pretty mild at Disney World, so I don't think they would cause anything but dizziness.
But who doesn't get dizzy on a ride? Like, it's weird. This is like, it's almost a nothing story. I actually think it's funny because they put some of the rides and I'm like, the one was the Buzz Lightyear one. That's the one where you shoot the lasers.
Yes.
Like, are you serious? And a lot of it is just like old people that maybe shouldn't be going on rides. And so they had to get hospitalized for over 24 hours, right? So maybe it's a person like the 76-year-old has a history of heart disease and he had a triple bypass surgery and he fell ill, so they kept him for observation.
What if you have a history of vertigo and then you go on one of these rides? Like, I don't think that's fair to go against Disney.
Yeah, the only one is that was on this list that I saw was, it said a 25-year-old hit her head and lost consciousness while riding the Humunga
Yeah, that
Cowabunga,
was the one we covered at CrimeCon.
Yeah. That's it. Wait, she lost consciousness?
We covered this story at CrimeCon.
No, that was the one from the thong, from the bathing suit going up your ass and like ripping your ass.
We talked about this and then led into the story of the thong.
Oh, so all right. Well, whatever. How'd she hit her head? I don't even understand how she hit her head.
It was unclear at the time when we covered it how she hit her head, but at some point she hit her head on the top and fell unconscious and was found at the bottom of the slide. Jesus. And then that's why we started talking about the thong, because I said in general I would never go on a water slide.
It's not even a thong. It's just like your normal brief bathing suit goes up your ass like a thong and like rips your in between your ass cheeks. It happened to me anyway. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So
on that ride's dangerous.
Yeah. So when we were talking about that story, you were bringing up your incident on that slide. And, that one warrants the report for me, right? Like, a woman was just doing what she was supposed to, hit her head, and then fell unconscious. Not like went on a ride as an old person with a history of heart problems or vertigo and then got dizzy. Like, no shit.
That's like every ride I go on. It's I don't know. I just
Because,
don't
for
understand.
example-
So these people actually went to like somebody and told them that they were having these problems?
Yeah, I guess, because I'm thinking, for example, if I went on the teacups ride now, I know I get violently ill going on spinning rides, right? So if I went on there, I might need medical attention because I'd be uncontrollably nauseous and dizzy for a long period of time. But I wouldn't go on
Yeah,
that.
I guess they go to like the medical people and they call 911 or something
The Buzz
like that. I don't
Lightyear
know.
one was mind-blowing to me because we just went on that. It goes at a glacial pace. I just think it's stupid that they even have to report these specific incidents and even have them associated with their name when I don't think, besides the woman knocking herself unconscious on the water slide, I don't think any of the other ones seemed like...
Well, when I opened the article, I was like, oh, this is going to be juicy. I can't wait to see who got their leg cut off on a ride or something. And it's like, oh, an old guy got dizzy on a roller coaster. Wow. Okay. Let's go on. This next story is very interesting, actually.
All right. So I don't know if I told you this on 4th of July. The night before 4th of July, we were going grocery shopping. So we just grabbed dinner at the bar near the grocery store. And on the TV, they had this hot dog eating contest, like broadcast live. And I was making that, speaking of making me nauseous, that was making me nauseous, watch these people inhale hot dogs. And of course, my husband knows every single person competing in this hot dog contest. He's like, oh, it's Joey Chestnut. So Joey Chestnut, in 5 minutes, eats 70 hot dogs, right?
Ew.
And then,
how?
And this is just, mind you, this is the qualifying round. It's not even the official contest. So then the person in second place, I think, only got to 50. And I'm like, wouldn't you slow down if people were catching up to you? Why would you eat 20 more? You just needed to eat one more than the person before you.
Why would you do that ever anyway? I don't really understand.
I don't know, but
I don't get it.
The worst part is they show them live on television, like throwing up through their hand while they're forcing more of them. And they have to eat the bun too. It's not even just the hot dog. It's the full thing.
I really just don't understand what the point of that is, because you're watching someone on film like abuse their body. That's all you're watching. For entertainment, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, so similarly, in China, they were live broadcasting this eating contest, except this one was like 10 hours long, not 5 minutes, and they were supposed to consume about like 22 pounds worth of food, which is outrageous.
What is this? This practice is called mukbang or something?
Mukbang.
Mukbang? So,
well, the trend of mukbang is like lightly, you would go to like it would be like we were driving around and we would go to like Chick-fil-A and get fries and McDonald's and get nuggets, and you drive around to like a bunch of different, that's the TikTok trend anyway, is you drive around to a bunch of different fast food places. It's called like fast food shopping. You come up with your perfect meal, or you take videos of yourself like eating all these different kinds of foods as fast as you can. So it's kind of this like combination of just showing yourself eating these disgusting foods, right? So this streamer that was participating in this eating contest, she was really well known for doing these mukbangs. So she's taking part in this 10-hour eating contest and ended up dying live on the feed in the middle of it.
yeah. So, which, of course, something's going to happen to you when you're doing shit like this. So this is what confuses me. They say that she died from a stomach perforation, which basically means that her stomach burst because she ate so much. The weird part of the article is that it says she died of a suspected stomach tear. And so why is it suspected if you did the autopsy?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point of it. So that's what I was like, okay. And then it said the autopsy showed the stomach became severely disformed and filled with undigested food, indicating that the stomach could have burst, causing stomach and acid leaking into her abdomen. Well, could it have burst or did it burst? Because
yeah,
you did the
didn't
autopsy,
you see
like
that
you would have
upon examination.
You would have saw that. So it was just written kind of weird. And I remember years ago, this show called Mythbusters did an episode to say if you really could die from eating too much, if your stomach could burst. And they basically came up with like, no, you can't. And that's not true because I found a couple medical cases of that actually happening that were reported in medical journals. So one of the key things in this article said that she had a history of being hospitalized previously for GI bleeding, which is like, duh, because you're doing this to your body. And so she probably had an ulcer that was bleeding, which was what was causing the GI bleeding. And when you have an ulcer in your stomach, it could that could cause your stomach to burst because it thins out the lining of your stomach and then it could kind of erode into the wall of your stomach. And if she already had that going on and then she overfilled her stomach, then it totally could have perforated and she could have died on the spot like that. Which is a terrible way to die. Terrible.
I mean, it sounds
painful.
like a horrible way to die. I don't understand the appeal of 10 hours. The 5-minute hot dog eating contest is the nastiest thing in the world. Sitting somewhere for 10 hours and just shoving as much food. How would you not get sick within minutes?
It's kind of, it is what, there was a psychologist in the article that got interviewed and said that it was like watching a form of like self-abuse.
Yeah.
And it really is. Like, if you think about a normal person that eats too much dinner and how disgusting you feel, you can't sleep at night. Like, why would you purposely be inducing that times 20 to people to watch you kind of suffer? It's kind of weird.
I mean, I did an ice cream eating contest once when I was a teenager, and I probably ate like 15 scoops of ice cream, which was not even anywhere close to what the winner hit. And I felt horrible, I feel like, for an entire week.
Yeah, I understand kids do it or whatever. It's like,
I would never do that now.
Funny. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
when I was a teenager, it seemed like an awesome idea.
Yeah, so she literally ate herself to death.
This episode's brought to you by The Gross Room.
All right, guys, so we've been talking about The Gross Room since we started Mother Knows Death, and that's really Maria and I's baby that we work on every day, and we just have so many articles, photos, videos that correspond to a lot of these stories we talk about and just other ones that have to do with the same pathology we talk about with these news stories. There's just so much content, thousands and thousands of articles there. So you can check that out at thegrossroom.com and you could get in for only $5.99 a month to try it out.
See you there.
All right, let's get started with true crime.
So around 12:20 in the afternoon, a dad was out shopping with his kids, and when they pulled up at the house, the 2-year-old was still sleeping in the back seat, so he decided to leave her back there. So let's keep in mind that it was 109 degrees outside. He didn't pull up in the garage because the garage was full of stuff, so the car is out in the open, out in this hot weather, but he left the air on. So his intention was to go in the house, unload groceries, and then go back out in a half hour before the car turned off and bring the kid back inside. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, so apparently the mom or the wife came home from work. She's a doctor, anesthesiologist working at a hospital, comes home.
Around 4 o'clock, so 3.5 hours later.
And, you know, it's Arizona. It's like Maria said, it was over 100 degrees outside. Comes home and sees 2 of the kids in the house. They're older kids. They were like 5 and 9 years old maybe, and is looking around and is like, where's the other kid? And so the husband doesn't know right away, is kind of frantic, like, oh, maybe she's in this room, maybe she's in this room. Then all of a sudden it like snaps in his brain like, oh my God, I totally didn't bring her out of the car yet. And the 2 go outside. They find the child who is unresponsive and they try to revive her. She goes to the hospital, but she's pronounced dead.
So it turns out that the dad was playing PlayStation for the entire time this kid was in the car. And what I really don't like about it is it seems like he was, I don't want to say lying, but he wasn't giving the cops a straight story. First, he said the kid was only in the car for 30 minutes. Then he said he got home at 2:30, not 12:30. But, you know, they proved from surveillance cameras and everything at the house that he pulled up at around 12:30 in the afternoon, and the wife didn't come home till 4, which was when they found the kid.
What is up with this story in general? It's just, I mean, like, listen, this happens all the time, but I'm sorry, I'm just going to call this out as what I see it is. It's like this woman worked her ass off to become this well-established doctor, and all that you have to go through for medical school and residency and fellowship and all of the years and all of the money it takes and all of the hard work. And you have a husband that is at home that's supposed to be taking care of the kids, and he's like a loser playing PlayStation, and the kids are not being watched. The two kids are there. So how's a 5 and 9-year-old being watched when the dad's sitting there playing video games and the other kids left in the car? Well, and more text messages came out between the couple after it happened.
Yeah, this is not the first time he's left the kid in the car. Actually, there's been texts where the wife has straight up said, "I've told you repeatedly not to leave the kids in the car." So this is clearly not the first time there's been an incident. When the other two kids were interviewed, they said the dad often left them in the car by themselves. Even if you're pulling up to like the gas station or whatever and you just have to run in for a second, you cannot leave them in the car. Especially not when it's hot out. And I'm sorry, but like, you don't want to wake your kid up and disturb them.
And you're playing video games? Like, what?
And obviously, like, when you're playing video games, time could just go by so fast. So it's like, you shouldn't even, I don't know. It's just so irresponsible on so many levels. Like you said, the basic nature of like, you're just not watching the kids in general, but then you also have a kid in the car. He said he left the air conditioning on, but then later admitted he knew the car turned off after a half hour. My car does that too. If I'm in it, sometimes like I was doing a doctor's appointment over Zoom, but I was driving and I had to pull over and park. And so after a half hour, my car was like, it's been 30 minutes, it's going to shut off because it doesn't really know that I'm in there, right? So like most newer cars are doing this. This car was a 2023 car.
And the text messages between them are kind of weird. Do you agree? They had some of them listed there. It just said, so this was after he had already done this and killed the kid. She had texted him and said, "I told you to stop leaving them in the car. How many times did I tell you?" And then he wrote back, "Babe, I'm sorry. Babe, our family, how could I do this? I killed our baby." And sometime during the exchange, she referred to him as being perfect, which I don't understand. Like, I understand you got 2 more kids with him. She even went to court and is like trying to get him not to get in trouble for this because she thinks that it's going to be bad for her other kids.
I don't think she's necessarily trying to get him to not be in trouble for it. She doesn't want him to be in jail until his trial because she wants the kids to try to live a normal life despite losing their sibling.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody's going to live a normal life,
I mean, he's been charged with murder and child endangerment. The judge had set the bail, I guess, after the wife pleaded with him for $25,000 instead of $1 million like the prosecution wanted. So it seems like he is home while awaiting trial. But the entire thing is just, it's disgusting just to not be paying attention to your kids like that and prioritizing playing PlayStation over it. But this is what happens when you don't.
Do you think PlayStation is people that play it? I mean, I know lots of people play it, but people that play it like that there could be a form of addiction where people like almost black out and they just can't wait to go on it again, and they're not like thinking straight, just like how people act at the casino or like anything like that.
I mean, to say it's just PlayStation is ridiculous. It's any piece of technology. I mean, you could go on Instagram or TikTok and like 3 hours could fly by. Like, not everybody has the personality to be trapped by that, but a lot of people do. It's any piece of technology, especially something that's stimulating your brain in that capacity. You shouldn't even be turning it on if you haven't like checked all the boxes, like, are my kids in the house? Are they safe? Are they fed? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing to think like how something like this could happen. Like, how you could forget. But I mean, like, we haven't even reported every one that we've heard of this summer because it keeps happening.
I don't think him playing video games is the biggest problem in this. I think he just seemed to have total negligence. I mean, the kids said that he left them in the car constantly. I think it was just an added
and it was
level
to play video games. Like it's I'm sorry, but when a grown man is playing video games and he's in charge of 3 children under the age of 9 years old, like, I'm sorry, you're a loser.
I don't agree with that. I think if you have your priorities in order, then it's not a problem. But clearly, he wasn't responsible person.
We could agree to disagree on that one. All right, let's get into medical news.
So new research shows that using marijuana before and during pregnancy has more than doubled in the last 2 decades. And shocker, there's problems.
I tell people this all the time, like, especially if you're trying to get pregnant, like, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol and you shouldn't be smoking weed, right? Like, I've been saying this forever, and I didn't have any official research to back up my claims just by being a person that knows that this shit is not as good for you as everybody likes to make it seem like it is for you. But they're saying that when they did a study on people that were pregnant versus not pregnant, that they saw that there was a 17% greater risk of gestational hypertension, which is high blood pressure, an 8% greater risk of preeclampsia, and even a greater risk of placental abruption. So that's when the placenta detaches from the inside of the uterus. And that's a huge problem because that's how the baby gets oxygen, or the fetus gets oxygen. So if the fetus doesn't get oxygen, then the fetus can die. So all of these things are super important, and it's not only during pregnancy, but it's also leading up to pregnancy. So this is big news. This is a big report.
Yeah, I mean, and they also said they couldn't tell whether it was strictly between smoking and edibles. It all seemed to be a problem. Like, there was not a distinct difference between the two.
Well, they weren't able to tell how the people were taking it. And so when they did the research, they had 250,000 pregnant people that they tested, and of those people that were involved that said that they were, well, they didn't all say it. 20,000 of them were actively had either taken it before pregnancy or taking it during pregnancy. And one of the most shocking parts is that some of them didn't admit to marijuana use, and 11,000 of them actually said that they didn't use marijuana, but their urine was positive for marijuana. So they weren't even being honest with the fact that they had used it.
Well, I mean, in general, how many people are honest about their drug usage? And then
oh yeah. Well, this is why, though, everybody says that it's safe all the time, because so many people lie about it. Like, if you go to the doctor, and things are getting different now, and you're going to see a change because of time going on. But like, let's say, for example, when I was a teenager, right? If I go to the doctor and they say, or I'm in my young 20s, I go to the doctor, this is in the early 2000s, and they say, do you smoke cigarettes? If I smoked, I'd be like, yeah, I smoke. Do you smoke weed? I would say, or do drugs, because it would say, do you smoke drugs, whatever. I would say no, because in the early 2000s, marijuana was illegal, and I would be scared that I could get in trouble if I said anything, right? So there's no statistics about people that have been using weed from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and everything like that to see if it does cause cancer, if it's causing other problems. And now we're seeing that, like, oh yeah, it does, because like more people are admitting to it, but people still aren't even admitting to it.
Well, it's just also changing too. It's like genetically modified, and it's so many more people are using it than ever before too. So of course we're going to see increases because more and more people are using it.
Yeah, and one other thing that they figured out too is that 9% of women are more likely to gain weight, and that's obviously because like you tend to eat more when you smoke weed. And if you gain too much weight during pregnancy, that's a bad thing too. So it's just like, it's not good. Like they've come out and said, stop listening to people on TikTok that tell you that you could have a weed gummy for anxiety and this and that. Like, it's not good for pregnancy.
Well,
and if you're trying to get pregnant, you shouldn't use it either.
It should be treated like any other drug during pregnancy. I don't understand why anybody like. You're supposed to consult a doctor before you take any type of drug while you're pregnant.
Yeah, even vitamins, because people want to say the natural thing, like and it's not. Well, now it's genetically modified and everything like that, but it is something that grows in nature. But so is the poppy plant that makes, you know what I mean, opium or whatever. Like, it's just you could still have issues with naturally grown things. and mushrooms and everything else, right?
Another new study from UCLA has found that AI tools identified prostate cancer with 84% accuracy compared to 67% accuracy of cases detected by physicians.
See, this is, you know how I'm usually like super anti-AI? These are the reasons that AI is a really great tool. I still would do without it just because of the horrible shit that's going to be happening over the next 20 years because of AI, but whatever. But they're saying that when a person has cancer and a doctor is trying to see if it came back, right? So they're going to give a person a radiology test, they're going to meet with a urologist and all this stuff. They weren't able to predict that the cancer was coming back as much as these AI tools were able to. So the AI tools are going to look at things like, what was their biopsy result? How old are they? What's their family history? What's their genetic predisposition? All this kind of stuff. What are their radiology results? And they put it together in some kind of, AI algorithm thing, and they come up with this map that says, okay, this is the most targeted treatment for this person. And that seems to be why there was just such a better rate of being able to detect these cancers in people. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think AI could be really useful when it's, designed and used properly, and there always still has to be a human element to it in some capacity. But if we can use it for good and try to cure cancer or identify when it's a problem, that could be really awesome for medicine.
Yeah, totally.
So other new this is all studies in the medical news this week. So another study has revealed that women with endometriosis are 4 times more likely to develop ovarian cancer.
A lot of these studies, especially this one and the one about the cannabinoids and pregnancy, I think it's really important because we have so many women listeners, especially, and that have things like they're trying to get pregnant or they have endometriosis. 11% of females have endometriosis. So think about that. It's a lot of people that deal with it. And this study is completely outrageous, saying that it increases your risk of, or it's seen 4 times as likely in patients that have endometriosis to get ovarian cancer. So that's kind of crazy, right?
Well, yeah, and I feel like endometriosis is one of those things we talk about a lot too, that you might be suffering from, but the doctors love blowing that one off, right?
Oh yeah. So, well, let's talk about what endometriosis is first. So you have these glands inside of your uterus that are responsible for your monthly period. They grow up all month and then they shed out. And these cells can be present in other parts of your body. So they're endometrial cells that are present they could be on your ovary or they could be on top of your colon or lining your other organs. And that's called endometriosis. So they're in an atypical location. And just as a woman is having her monthly period and getting all those pain and bloating and everything, it's because of what's happening not only with the uterine muscle, but with those cells, because they're regulated by hormones. So when those cells are in other areas of your body, they can cause you to get really bloated and they can cause you to have a lot of pain and discomfort. So that's what endometriosis is.
Yeah, so, this is one of those things that I've talked about it on here before. I've been trying to get tested for it because I've had extremely painful periods my entire life. And, every time I go to the OBGYN, they're just like, periods hurt. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think they're supposed to hurt like this, which actually a lot of doctors come out and say they're not supposed to really hurt at all. So when you go to the doctor, right, and they blow you off, you think it's awesome. So then I went to a holistic doctor recently and got all this blood work done and found out that I do have PCOS, which is something I wish I've known before because I've been asking for, nearly a decade to be tested for endometriosis. So now knowing that I do have a legitimate situation and how to treat it to help myself is awesome. So shout out Dr. Farr, because now I feel better with how I'm going to treat my body. But I just think the whole process of getting diagnosed for this and people getting blown off is so ridiculous. And
it's not easy. This is what you need to know. It's not easy to diagnose this.
No, and I get that. It's more of you're
it's it's invasive. They have to pop a hole in your stomach in your abdomen with a camera and look inside to see if you have it. And that to do that to somebody can set them up with other issues, because once you introduce tools and everything into the abdomen, then people could get adhesions, which can give you even more problems. So they don't like to do that, right? The only reason that I got diagnosed with it is because they were already in there when I was having my botched hysterectomy, and they were in there and they saw it when they were in there. But that's the only way that I know it. Prior to that, I didn't know it. But I don't know. I do understand that a lot of doctors blow people off, and other Maria went to a great doctor who was really pro finding out if someone had endometriosis and taking care of it. There's another school of thought that's just like, we're not going in there with a laparoscopy because we can cause adhesions, and on top of that, some people think that you can't really cut it out, even if you do, and it could grow back and all of this stuff. So a lot of the treatment is they'll give you oral contraceptive pills, right? Which like a lot of us are just like, we don't want to take hormones. But, and this is very interesting, but if you take the oral contraceptive pills to relieve the symptoms of the endometriosis, it's known that oral contraceptive pills actually reduce your risk of ovarian cancer. So that might be like a double benefit for people that want to consider taking those drugs when maybe they haven't before, because they know that now they have a 4 times increased risk of developing this kind of cancer.
All right. In February, a man with a rare form of throat cancer, I'm not trying to pronounce this one, received the first successful total larynx transplant after a 21-hour procedure.
Oh, he actually had a really weird cancer. I think it was, I didn't write it down, but is it written on your paper if I say it?
No.
I think it was like a chondrosarcoma, which is like a cancer that arises from the cartilage, which is not the typical cancer you would get from throat cancer. Usually you get throat cancer from either HPV virus or from smoking cigarettes, right? So that's kind of from like the lining inside of your throat versus the cartilage rings that kind of hold it stable. And I don't know if that has to do with why he was considered a candidate for this surgery. But what do you think that this story reminded me of?
The bad surgeon?
Yeah, the bad surgeon. That's what I first thought of, because didn't he make like he was
making synthetic tracheas.
Yeah, so this is, from what I've read, this is a transplant surgery from cadaver. It's actually such an insane transplant. These structures would be hard to take out at autopsy when a person's dead, like intact, and it would take some time to get them all separated. And to think a surgeon can do this on a person that's still alive just kind of blows my mind. I mean, it said the surgery was 21 hours, which I 100% understand.
Yeah, and I read that he was the third patient to receive this transplant, but I guess they're considering this to be the first quote unquote successful one, because now that it's been a couple months, his voice is starting to return, including his Boston accent.
Yeah, isn't that so cool?
Yeah, it's really cool. So it said 60% of his vocal function has returned, so that's pretty, that's good, and it looks good for people that are going to need this procedure in the future too. There's some hope.
It's cool because this is considered to be your voice box. But so you would think, well, like, how does he have the Boston accent still? And it's like that it's just really interesting when you're learning how to talk. It's like how your palate is formed in your mouth, your heart, the roof of your mouth is formed, and how your tongue is hitting against it, which is really what gives the accent. It's not coming from your throat. And they said for this surgery, it's the pharynx, which is the upper throat, upper trachea windpipe, upper esophagus, which is like the tube where your food goes into your stomach, thyroid, parathyroid glands, and vital blood vessels and nerves. Like that, it's just, I can't explain to you how insane this is. Maybe only a person that's either taken gross anatomy or has done an autopsy, just to think about how all those structures are together, and thinking about taking them out of a dead person and putting them into a live person and them actually working is just so cool. It's so cool. I love that they were able to do this. It really is amazing what medicine can do sometimes. All right, let's talk about other death news.
A 34-year-old woman in Ohio had called emergency services nearly 400 times since 2020, essentially for her own entertainment.
Yeah, so she has been diagnosed with factitious disorder, which is one of Maria's favorite things.
What is this?
It's what was formerly called Munchausen's.
Oh my God. Why can't it just be called Munchausen's?
I don't know. Because they got to change it. It probably offends somebody who knows.
But everybody knows what the word Munchausen's means.
She's a liar. That's what it is. It's a person that makes up symptoms to seem like they're sick and even falsify tests or anything like that just to show that they have some kind of disease, disorder, medical condition that they don't really have. And then it was called Munchausen, so that's when it's on yourself. And then it's Munchausen's by proxy is when you do it on one of your kids, like the Gypsy Rose situation.
Yeah, so this lady is calling 911 repeatedly, multiple times a week. They said sometimes even multiple times in a day. And she was essentially getting these like free rides to the hospital via ambulance. And they kept telling her at the hospital nothing was wrong with her, but she just wanted to take the ambulance rides. So when the first responders were responding to one of these 911 calls, which they're calling a totally fake trip, right? Somebody actually did need help, but because they were occupied with her and understaffed, they did not get to the person that was in real medical distress and was having breathing problems, and that person died because of it.
That's so nuts. It really is. I didn't get a chance to talk to Gabe before we started recording today, but I want to get his take on this. He doesn't really have much to do with that, but I feel like we've talked to him about that before. Like, when you get outrageous calls, he says he has to go, even if it's completely ridiculous. Because let's say this lady called and said, like, my throat's closing up, I feel like I can't breathe. And then they were like, yeah, you already called 400 times. And then nobody showed up and then she died. That would have been a major lawsuit too, you know?
Well, I guess this could happen in theory all the time, because let's say they were going to a legitimate call and they were understaffed. Same situation, right? That person still would have died if they were attending to another person with a credible threat. But they're just like, when is this gonna be stopped? Like, she is a known fake caller. She's calling all the time. And now, like you're saying, we have to respond to the call. And when they're responding to a call where there's proven nothing wrong with her at all, somebody's life is now lost.
Who pays for the ambulance?
Medicaid she has, so we are paying for it.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
I mean, she's getting in trouble. I guess it's a crime.
Now taxpayers pay for Medicaid, which she's not getting charged for them, so why not keep doing them, basically, is her mindset.
So if she has this disorder called factitious disorder, is that considered a mental... It's considered a mental health condition,
Listen,
right?
Do me a favor and just call it Munchausen's, because like the name swap.
I don't want to be saying the outdated terminology.
The name swap is just ridiculous to me. Like,
maybe factitious disorder, because maybe it covers other things, like people that are just chronic liars, because people lie about other stuff besides medical conditions.
Yeah, like Munchausen's is strictly affiliated with medical problems, correct? So
I don't know.
This is just such a ridiculous thing. I can't imagine how often this actually goes on, right? Just people calling, and then, she's not getting the medical bills, so just keep going. Who cares at that point? They're saying if Gypsy 400 times, like the people at 911 were probably like, what's the lady's name? I don't know what her name is.
Yeah.
I don't even want to give her the service of saying her name on this.
Hi, Jen. What's wrong? We'll use Jen's name. Hey, Jen. What's wrong? Oh, okay. It's you again. Yeah. Oh, no, we don't need your address. We know it by heart. Bye.
So she's been charged with felony disruption of public service, felony making false alarms, and 25 counts of misdemeanor misuse of 911 systems, which... That seems, maybe because she pleaded guilty that was what they settled on, but is she not getting like taxpayer fraud too? Like, don't you think the hospital bills should be fraudulent as well?
Yeah.
Having taxpayers pay false medical bills?
I want to know how this disorder is characterized, because I wonder if they're going to use that in court. Like, she had this mental illness condition that she wasn't able to control.
Well, they said she was evaluated by a forensic psychologist, and then that's when they decided she was going to plead guilty. So that's interesting to me.
It is, right? Because you just think like that would be the workaround. Like, she doesn't know that what she's doing is wrong. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Every person lies from time to time about something, but then there's like this, which is like, it's just not even in the realm of normal. You know what I mean? So there has to be something going on with her, and then you have to wonder, like, is that beyond her control or not, kind of thing. I don't know.
I know somebody.
Like, what did she really? This is what I want to say. Did she really believe that something was wrong with her? And that's why she was making those calls, or was she doing it to be like for attention? That's the difference I want to make, I guess.
I mean, you could even argue if she was doing it for attention, something's wrong with her. So like no right.
Yeah, I know.
No sane person would do this.
This is what I always get confused about with the whole forensic psychiatry and psychology thing, is that there's a certain level of like, okay, a person can get away with something, like you're schizophrenic and you were having a psychotic episode and you stabbed your mom to death, and you're not going to go to jail for it because you had schizophrenia, right? That's pretty clear cut. But then it's like, oh, but if you just decide to stalk someone for 10 years and be a serial killer, like you're just evil. But like, no, not normal people don't do that. So there's something wrong with them too, right?
Okay, on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put up a story for 24 hours with a little question box, and you guys can ask whatever you want. First, when you die from cancer, what happens exactly? Do organs get taken over and can't work?
There's lots of different things that could be your ultimate cause of death, but yeah, that's basically what happens. So let's say you have a tumor in your colon, right? And this is saying you either don't get it treated or you get it treated and the treatment doesn't work. The tumor could eventually grow so big that it could obstruct the lumen, or the hole inside your colon where the poop goes through. And if the poop can't go from your mouth to your anus, then it could cause an obstruction, and eventually the bowel could perforate, just like we were talking about with the person that ate too much. The poop could accumulate and cause it to kind of burst open. So that could kill someone right there. But also the tumor could spread. So it could spread to the liver, which is a very essential organ. And the liver functions because the liver cells are there and they're functioning fine. But once the liver starts getting taken over by lots of different tumors that are now made of colon cancer cells that don't function as liver cells, then the liver can stop functioning properly too. Now, the liver, I mean, there's just so many different things that could happen, because the tumors could get so big in the liver that they could obstruct one of the major vessels and cause a rupture there. There's just so many different things that could happen, but ultimately it's because the tumors are just overtaking other organs, either by space or by function.
Interesting. Number 2. Maria, did your mom's job ever gross freak you out when growing up, or was it just normal thing? I mean, of course it grossed me out. I'm a hypochondriac. I don't like being in any medical situations at all. And one summer when I was 15, I couldn't get a job, so you made me intern with you, and that was traumatic in itself. Because, I would go to the lab with you, and then you'd hold up a placenta and then be like, look at this. And I don't want to see stuff like that. That's your choice.
I was thinking too, it was probably bad for you because, that was like the best job ever when I worked there. And I loved like mostly everybody that I worked with. And it was just a really good time. And I worked there so long too that like, it was just like everybody knew you and everything. and you're there surrounded by like all these other adults, 20 or 30 other adults that all like don't think anything of this either. So you're like this one that's like looking around all the time like, oh, we're just cool that there's blood here and we're getting talk about getting lunch and there's dead bodies around this and that. And then everybody else is just like, yeah, this is just, you're the only one that thinks this is weird. Everybody else here is completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, and then everybody used to ask me if I was going to do that. And I'm like, I don't know in what world you would think I want to be here any more than I have to be these required hours.
I was thinking this yesterday because I had the kids in the car and I was driving them home from camp and one of their friends was with them and they always ask me about different diseases. Can you do this? Can you do this? You know, can this happen to your body? So I gave them my phone and I was like, yeah, look this up. And they, you know, they go on Google and they look it up and Lulu's in the back, like holding her chest, like, ew. And I'm just like, dude, you're not used to this by now. Like you are around my books are open all the time. You guys go on my phone all the time. There's pictures in my phone. You see what I do. They're like, I'll be writing in the gross room and I have an article up and I'll be, you know, the picture will be there and they come sit on my lap just to like give me a kiss or something. And they like look over at my computer screen and they're like, what is that? You know, so I don't know if there was ever a point where the kids get desensitized to it.
I don't know, but like I was kind of saying earlier, though, as far as was it normal for me? So that trip where we went to the ICU and had to look at pictures of people's legs cut off, like that was normal for me, but it still grossed me out. I saw pictures like that from you before, but I'm very squeamish, ironically enough. Even during your CrimeCon lecture, like I can sit in the chair and put your presentation together and help you write the website and everything, but something about being in a public space and those pictures on the screen, like I just get flustered.
Well, also, I guess when you do the lecture for me, when you help me do the PowerPoint, it's like you don't know what you're looking at because I don't really put too much text in the photographs. It's more of the story that goes along with it while I'm doing the lecture. So maybe that's why, because you actually get to hear details and know what it is, because a lot of it just looks like a piece of meat or something, right, on the screen.
Yeah, like I put it together for you and I left in the middle of your lecture, as you know, mostly because I can't handle it. People are like, you're leaving? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be there the first couple minutes and I'm going to come at the end because I want you to know I'm there and I support you and I want to watch you do those things. But I mentally just, I can't look at pictures like that. It's not for everybody. So people probably think I'm a little bitch, but like, whatever.
You are.
I don't care. It's not for me.
And you know what? Your sister got your little bitch gene because I brought her to so I bring 2 kids to the dentist to get 1 cavity filled each. And the one, Lucia, goes in. She doesn't even, like, I don't even know that she goes back. Like, she just doesn't even need me. I go over and check on her and I was like, you need me to hold your hand when you get the Novocaine? And then the dentist was like, she already got it. She's fine. Like, I was like, oh. The other one's just like, Mommy, hold my hand. I hate getting needles. This is so bad. And then the whole time he's given the Novocaine, it's like this big drama. And I'm like, oh my God, you're just like your sister.
Actually, at the dentist, I'm totally fine getting needles. I don't know what it is. Like in that environment, I'm 100% fine. But when I had to get my blood taken recently, though, then I found out that you could book a home appointment via LabCorp. So then I was like, this is sick. I'm going to book it right when I wake up so I don't, like, it's a mental thing. Like, I was like, I can't wake up and be thinking about it for hours.
It's a mental thing because I watched Lillian do it yesterday and I was telling her, I'm like, dude, just the buildup between her knowing she had to get the needle in her mouth and waiting for the dentist to get into the room. It was like, it was torture for her. And I'm like, dude, you can't do this to yourself because when you're a human, you have to get these procedures and shit done all the time. And like, you can't be completely like going nuts every single time you got to do something like that.
No, but
it's all mental.
I think doing that at my house was helpful for me. Just, I hadn't gotten blood taken in a while and I'm very squeamish with it. So I think just being able to be in my own environment, just like, you know, it's like the drive to this completely sterile room with like serial killer LED lighting is just not helping the situation. So I'm like, I could lay on my couch. The lady that came was really awesome and I got through it and I didn't pass out. So that was good. But I also know that's like bitch made and I got to get over it. So like, I don't know. All right, last. Favorite books to read, fiction, nonfiction, etc.
I personally don't like fiction, and the only fiction books that I read are ones when I read to my kids, because they're into graphic novels and all of these books they want me to read, and I typically don't like that. I like books that are based upon real life and real events. What about you?
I like a mixture of both. Like I like when I'm like just want my mind off of something, I just read like really cheesy non-conflict romance books, you know. And then I also really like pop culture history. I just read Apprentice in Wonderland, which is this new book about the history of the apprentice and the presidency. And then I read that book about the Idaho murders, which I liked. I read a lot of like celebrity memoirs just because I like behind the scenes of the industry. But
let me tell you guys about a book that I just read it's total like what did my neighbor Bill call it? Trash. And I was like, listen, dude, I have to deal with such heavy shit with my job sometimes. Like I want to tune out and do my gardening outside and just listen to trash. But it's called what's the book called? Ask Not.
You consider this
Not.
a relaxing break from the content you cover at work was a book about how the Kennedys killed all the women in their lives?
They didn't physically kill them. It's just it's called Ask Not, and it's about like the Kennedy men and the women they destroyed or something like that. It was total. I loved it though. I thought it was so juicy because I'm so into Kennedys, like you don't understand. But I thought it was really juicy, and I still love them even though they seemingly treated women terribly. But the book was really good because it went through like all of the things that you kind of want to know. So I am curious as far as how factual all the information is in it. But if you guys want to decompress and listen to something that's not, I don't know, I don't feel like that's heavy to me. I know you think it is, I guess.
I'm not
it's kind of like other people's drama. It's not my drama.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's heavy per se. I'm just saying that's not a break from the content we cover regularly.
Yeah, I guess. It's just like, but it's kind of what I'm saying. It's a break from. Sometimes I feel guilty if I'm like doing something that's not educational, that I'm not learning something and it's not like enriching my life. Like it's pure trash. Like it's just it's nothing that's going to make my life any better.
That's why I read celebrity memoirs, because they are pure trash.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's like it's nothing enriching and for my soul or my body. You know what I mean? Like that's why I say that. But occasionally I do like trash.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not reading any like Pulitzer Prize winning novels that are changing my entire perspective on life. I just like reading like easy books that I cannot stare at my phone all day or, you know, just mentally escape for a minute. So not everything has to be so serious, but all right. Well, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to submit your story for 6 shocking stories, and that's at stories@motherknowsdeath.com. We are always taking submissions for that, and we love to hear the details.
Awesome. See you guys next week. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.